Good evening, everyone, and welcome to day 427 on our daily updates. Really excited, thankful that you're here. April the 26th, 9 o'clock. East Coast, 4 a.m. in Ukraine, 6 p.m. California, and whatever time it is where you are at and whatever day it is, we thank you for being here. Thank you for liking, subscribing, commenting, giving, Patreoning, all of it. Everything's in the description, and we thank you for being here. Tonight, I'm excited because we've got the man with us for the entire update. And not going to waste any time. Going to get him right in here. Let me unmute him here. And away we go. So, my friends, welcome tonight. Coming in from Ukraine, our partner. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Looking good.
Nice to be here. Yeah,
It's like
thank you.
Okay, so you're in Ukraine.
Yes.
With an American t-shirt.
Yeah, a friend of mine.
Levi's.
Sent me as a gift. Levi's.
I'm in America with the
and
Ukrainian
he was
shirt.
in Sweden, and he was in Sweden that time, and I got it in Ukraine, American T-shirt.
Nice. Okay, so the Ukrainians were an American shirt, and the Americans were in a Ukrainian shirt. So here we go. It's going to be good. Hope you're doing well, and nice to have you here. We'll jump right in. We're going to start here tonight. So here's how I want to handle it tonight, Zhenya. I'm going to show a slide. Got quite a bit of video to share that is translated. Some of it's in English tonight. Kaleva speaking in English. We have Biden in English. The others we translate. But I'm going to show a slide, give the information, then we'll get your response, and we'll move through the update tonight. So let's get started right here. Today, Ukraine releases information on how many Russian soldiers are inside Ukrainian sovereign territory. It looks like, with information that's coming, especially with what we're going to share coming out of NATO, the Supreme Commander, who is an American, it looks like as the weather will soon get better, we're going to see an increase in battles. With that said, we watch Bakhmut very closely, and people are here each Monday, Wednesday, Friday to get an update on that. Let me show that first, then we'll come back to this and get your Bakhmut as we've been watching. And we go back a week or so. This was basically the line. We've been following it 22nd, 23rd, 24th, but today, pretty big jump there. And when we were talking prior to the stream, you said, yeah, tough day in Bakhmut. Before we look at the Russian soldiers, you know anything specific about Bakhmut? I mean, we're losing some ground there, but we expected it. Ukraine is doing a good job holding off so that other things can happen, but it's tough there, yeah?
So coming to Bakhmut, I think it's connected the quantity of Russian troops on Ukrainian territory who fights and the results. A lot of, they're using almost 6,000 military technique just, on the Russian side. And yes, they have some success, or this is what do we see. And coming to the map, we see like they have some success there, but I believe our commanders, they have own plan and own scenario for that. So it's easy that maybe our guys preparing some trap or something. We will see. But I trust our guys.
I do too. The numbers you're referring to inside Ukrainian territory released today, 370,000 Russian soldiers, 48 brigades, 122 regiments, 315 identified unique positions, meaning they're in this village, they're in this town, they're in this location. There's a lot of soldiers in there. But I think about it on the positive side. That much is in there, and they can barely move the line. Ukrainian soldiers are doing an amazing job with the resources they have.
Yeah, with the support of, with certain support of our friends, like I would like to say, like allies, but
Allies.
allies. Sorry, but it's like with a big support, military including, weapon including, and yeah,
Well, let's talk about that
that's.
ally support. I'm going to show the next slide, and then I'm not going to say a peep. Get your opinion on it. I have my own. Ukraine, and this is according to Christopher Cavoli, who is the NATO Supreme Commander in Europe. Ukraine has already received 98% of the military equipment promised by the West.
Mhm. Uh, on what date? Promised on what date?
This came out today, and I don't know what date it was promised.
Yeah, but
I
there were so many promises, and there were so many different periods. Ukraine were requesting help, and as I know, some promises were covering till the end of 24, till the end of 25th. So I don't know how to comment that. I hope I hope that he means something, some date in his mind probably, or on a certain period, because if Russia will use much more, mobilizing much more their terrorists, and with counting that China will start supply Russia more, I think the world will not be like, I mean, quiet. There will be feedback.
I would say it this way. You tell me if you agree or disagree. If 98% of the promised equipment's already in Ukraine, we're in trouble.
Yeah, like yeah,
I mean,
but
seriously, we need equipment. We need
yeah,
equipment.
we need equipment. I tell
Okay.
you, we need equipment. I cannot name the things, specific needs. I know, but I know there is needs there, and
Yes.
I know China started to supply Russia, and it's obvious there from different parts. We hear it, and I would like to say, hey, I would like to hear from our guys, hey, but we have even much more of drone supply or something. I think it's somewhere on the way. I hope so.
I do too. I'm just this came out today. It's interesting. We'll leave it at that, and we'll see what unfolds from it. You know, speaking about the drones, wrong
Mhm.
one. Let me go to this one. Speaking about the drones, China came out and said, "Who owns DJI?" By the way, said they're going to stop all supplying of DJI drones outside of China until the war's over because they don't want them being used in a war. You know as well as I know, Ukraine uses DJI, Russia uses DJI, and they modify them. Our guys are geniuses. Anyway, we'll see. If 98% of the equipment's already there, we're in trouble. It's just how I
Sorry,
see it.
I don't trust this way. I don't trust this moment. China, they have a lot of other companies in other countries. They can rebrand it. It can
Mm-hmm.
be not DJI, but something other stuff. No, they have own interest in it, money including selling chips,
Yes.
and I think even they sharing the codes, special codes to track. And I think that Russia has a little bit more access. If for the standard DJI drones, they have special access for the newest one. I mean, the software and the version. I heard it need to be modified, but our guys doing a great job as a programmers.
Mm-hmm.
So.
We're going to talk about China here coming up. That's one of the biggest news stories of the day. But before we get there,
Mhm.
why is Russia? Of course, they say they're liberating, they're setting free, all this jazz, which is all lies. But why? Why are they hanging out in that east so much? Why did they start there? Why do they want Lugansk and Donetsk and Dnepropetrovsk and Zaporozhye and Kherson? Well, specifically, 70% of all natural resources in the ground inside of Ukraine, where the most wealth is in Lugansk, Donetsk, and Dnepropetrovsk. 70%,
Mhm.
$14.8 trillion we're talking about in the ground and 70% of it is in the regions. And Lugansk, 98% occupied, Donetsk, largely occupied, and Dnipropetrovsk, not occupied. But this is where the money is. It's logical.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but when it comes to China, I believe China calculating their own interest in everything. And coming back to territories in China, you may track the neighboring territories to China of Russia. China getting more and more access to Russian territories there. Why? The sources, forests, and so on, the woods. A
So,
lot of.
we haven't even got to this point of the update tonight. It just seems like you're really stuck on China tonight. You don't
No,
trust them.
no, absolutely. Zero.
Does Ukraine trust them?
China, sorry?
Inside information that you hear, does Ukraine
Yeah.
trust China?
No, I think Ukraine is quite aware that China looking for their own interest. The Russian
Yeah.
interest is secondary. It's secondary. They will be using Russia the way they want, and not just
Yes.
Russia, France and other countries. Doesn't matter. Just to have more access to selling, more access to buying, more access to influence.
That moves us to the big news of the day. Zelensky and
Hmm.
Xi having their first phone call since the war began. It lasted almost an hour. Of course, Zelensky, a diplomat, a president, has to spin it a little bit and say, well, we had a nice talk, and I appreciate the Chinese peace plan, which she reiterated. She talked about that, China's not really going to take sides. And we also, Zelensky said, will not move for the Chinese plan. We're only standing with our plan, which is territorial integrity, our 1991 borders, including Crimea. And there will be no negotiation on that. China came out as a part of that call and created a new position. Maybe you guys haven't heard this today watching the stream around the world. This is a little like second layer news, but China, as a result of the phone call with Zelensky today, put into place a new envoy, a new diplomat to kind of represent the interest of China towards Ukraine during this war. And very interesting, his name is Li Wei, Beijing Special Delegation for the Peaceful Settlement of the Ukrainian Crisis, will be headed by former Chinese ambassador to Russia, Li Wei. Chinese Foreign Ministry, Russian President Putin previously awarded him the Order of Friendship Award. So
Hmm.
this is what unfolded for real today with the meeting between on the phone between Zelensky and China. So you're completely
Yeah.
validated, my friend, in not trusting any of this.
But to be honest, I think it was so right to have this conversation from Zelensky side
Mm-hmm.
to make position clear and make it official. One more time, just a reminder what our position and their choice. Like, yeah, sure, Ukraine is not a big country. I mean, it's a big country, but comparing, but still, our position now, political position of Ukraine, quite interesting to the whole world.
Well, it's made very clear today.
Hmm.
Zelensky telling China, their
Hmm.
president, who is one of the strongest nations in the world, only our territory, period. At the
Hmm.
same time, Lavrov over the last few days, speaking in the UN, spewing his venom. We'll look at that in a moment. But Ukrainian foreign minister speaking on an interview in English, and we'll watch that in a second, saying the same thing as President Zelensky. Only our borders. Only. That's the
Hmm.
requirement. So I think you're right. Now, Xi and China have been told directly from
Hmm.
Ukraine, from Zelensky, only our borders. They're not hearing it through a third party or from news. President to president made that statement. So I think that's a good observation you have there. if you take it a step further, we come back once again to a guy I've been talking about last couple of weeks, Peter Pavel. This is the president of Czech, former NATO general. This guy is not only a politician, but he's a military guy. He said China has too much to gain from war to play peacemaker, and also that China cannot be trusted to mediate in establishing peace between Russia and Ukraine because it is beneficial for Beijing to prolong the war. When it comes to Ukraine, Pavel argues China only wants the best for itself, exactly what you were saying. And at the moment, it's even more of a war. That's what China really wants. I think it's in China's interest to keep the status quo because it can actually push Russia into concessions for China. So it's exactly what you said. China's playing their own angle here for their own benefit.
Yeah, and I think it's in any place and any moment. We just need to be trying to track what China already have, what area they already have the interest. I think. I think the main interest for them at this moment, beside the sources of through Russia or from Russia, it's selling the weapon, because they started to sell. I mean, sure, they will say that they sell nothing. They do not supply Russia, but they are, and this is a big business now
Have
for
you
China.
have you
And
heard from
Russia has
any?
no option.
Say that again.
Russia has no options.
Have you heard from any military on the front lines confirmed Chinese stuff is there?
Yeah, sure. And on one of the front lines, our guys, scouts or like reconnaissance team, I don't know, they were listening, and they are listening Russian channels, the radios, and it was a week ago, one of the dialogue they were, when the Russians between them were criticizing the Chinese grenades, how bad they are, they like comparing to others. So our guys had never something like that. So for sure, I mean, for sure there is a Chinese different stuff. And if you remember, our guys already found some stuff from Iran, 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 and now coming to the south, a lot of drones. Russia didn't have so much. I don't want to repeat it many times, but like it multiplied. They multiplied the quantity of drones and the pilots on that area on the south.
Well, we know
Probably.
about within the last week, they've been resupplied by Iran. We know that. That was made public. So they're loaded up again. There's no question. We know it. It's just for some reason the world doesn't want to recognize it. But we shall see. I'll tell you somebody who's recognizing it. I'll make this statement here. This is from the Bulldog Nation, Estonia. Martin Herem, Commander-in-Chief, Estonian Armed Forces, made this quote. What do you think about it? True peace in Ukraine and the region, which includes Estonia, will only be possible after the complete collapse of Russia.
I would say it's not just a region, meaning Baltic countries, Ukraine. Okay, I think it's much more wide. Come to Poland, come to situation with Romania, with their news, different people. Go to Italy and Spain. There is something about that inside the countries. And some European countries, other countries as well. What about Finland and Sweden? Sure, it's everything. I mean, their economic, all of those countries growing the number of money they percent they spend for defense system, for the military, for weapon, and for good big countries, let's say for rich countries, it can be sensitive, but not much. But for country who are like trying to do their best, and when they're loading their budget with the military so many, people will experience it for sure. They will feel
And
it.
what we need to remind people, we have lots of Americans that watch, lots of Australians, lots of Europeans, but for the United States and, for example, Australia, people do not understand when we talk about the region around Europe and Russia and the Baltic states, it's small compared to these large nations. Yeah, Russia's huge, but Europe, all these nations, when you say regional, you're dealing with a lot of different nations,
Hmm.
and it's far-reaching. This affects. It's just not regional. It
Okay,
affects the whole world.
a couple more things. Let's move the region. Why I believe the collapse should be it will be a victory for the whole world. Why? Not so much countries with that quantity of nuclear weapon are crazy enough repeating time by time, every time. Oh, we may use it. We may use it. So we as a terrorist, we occupying other territories. If somebody wants to stop us, we may use it. We may use, and okay, for the world, take Australia. They're far.
Mm-hmm.
Take South America. But when it comes to the crazy dictatorship like this, with threatening the world of using nuclear weapon, yes, until it's not just a pause, it's too late. It will not be on a pause. We cannot put it on a pause. It
Mm-hmm.
should be somehow finished. We need to, we need to stop it. The whole world.
Well, that leads us right where we want to go. Um, I have a video I'm going to show in just a few minutes from Medvedev, the former president, talking about the nuclear. We've got Lavrov talking about the nuclear. But before we get to those guys and exactly what you're talking about, let's finish with Kuleba. Let's go here. I'm going to play a couple of videos and then we'll get your response to them. So we're going to talk about the foreign ministers now of Ukraine and Russia. You have Kuleba on the left and you have Lavrov on the right, both of them trying to make it very clear their opinions. So here's the first one. This is Kuleba talking. CNN.
Putin's narrative appears to be gaining some traction in the usual corners and with the usual suspects. But now increasingly people like President Lula of Brazil are coming out with very strong talk about how, that he wants to build a coalition for peace, that he's pretty much almost repeating the Russian narrative for why this war is underway. He's talking about China being a reliable interlocutor for somehow ending this war. What do you say to the leader of a democratic country like Brazil?
We welcome every peace effort, whenever it comes from, wherever it comes from. Given that, first, this peace effort does not imply that Ukraine has to cede part of its territory to Russia in exchange for the end of war, because it never worked and it will never work. And second, that this conflict does not get frozen. So any peace plan that does not lead to freezing the conflict or Ukraine ceding territory to Russia, we are ready to discuss. We are ready to discuss that. And if President Lula wants to invest his capital in building a coalition or a group of countries who are ready to pursue peace with full respect to these two principles which I just mentioned, we are ready to talk with them. But when he mentioned, when he said something that goes beyond these principles that I mentioned, we immediately publicly reacted. We don't have problem with that, because what is at stake here is the territorial integrity of our country and the secure future, safe future of our people. And we will be fighting for it as long as we can.
So that's your foreign minister, Kuleba. What do you think?
Clear. Clear. It's clear. I mean, like, it's so simple all the way. The question is why there is a countries and the people who doubting of if maybe Ukraine is a terrorist country, or maybe Russia has a right, blah 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 blah. The question why still pro-Russian. Sorry.
So let me ask you this. Do you agree with your foreign minister?
Absolutely.
Do Ukrainians agree with him?
In common, yes. I mean, no negotiation.
No, we can't say
about
all,
the
but the
territory.
Ukrainians agree in general.
Yes, yes. In when it's come about, we I mean, nobody wants to negotiate with Russia at this moment. Okay, nobody in Ukraine. I mean, to make it like nice with
Okay.
anything.
Okay. Let's let this speak for itself. Are you ready?
Okay.
Now, we're going to go back here. How articulate, well-spoken, clear. He spoke in English. Now, I don't want that to be misrepresented, because Lavrov's English is equal to that of Kuleba, if not better. His English is phenomenal. I've heard him interviewed in English, and it's perfection. I'm going to show that in a moment. But he's speaking Russian here, and let's look at the other side and let people judge for themselves. You heard Kuleba speaking, very clear. This is Ukrainian viewpoint. Well, what has Mr. Lavrov been saying? He was just at the UN. There you go.
Президент Байден, если я сейчас
Okay, I won't reproduce the quote right now, literally, but President Biden basically said this: if we help Ukraine win, we will prevent World III. Do you guys here even analyze your own president's statements, or do you just look at my speeches at the Security Council? Some time ago, the Prime Minister of Britain, Liz Truss, said that she would not hesitate to press the red button. France, I think it was Jean Le Drian, was a foreign minister. He was heard saying about these conversations that France also has nuclear weapons. And then the commander of the German Air Force, he stated that he would not allow Putin to scare us with a nuclear war, and that Germany is ready for it. All of this was happening when we were silent about the Third World War. Let me remind you that under President Trump, we were the ones who suggested to the Americans to reconfirm publicly at the highest levels our relationships, like Gorbachev and Reagan, that Russia and the United States, which was still then the Soviet Union, believed that there would never be a winner in a nuclear war, and that it can never be unleashed. We suggested under Donald Trump that we do the same public statements. And if the Americans were willing to discuss this statement, they always have some kind of caveats. And of course, these completely devalue anything they say. Now, under President Biden, our presidents made such a statement, and after that, we took the initiative, and a similar statement on the no possibilities of nuclear war was adopted at the highest level by all 5 nuclear powers. So, when this topic, when it comes up, everyone immediately always points their finger at Russia, that Russia is leading the world into a third world war. Well, he who has a pain, that's what he says. That's what the proverb is. see any difference there between Lavrov and Kuleba?
Okay.
You were talking about it.
Yeah, but you understand, I have kind of blocks in my mind, to be honest, like being straight. Why? Because it's the same person and the same country and the same government team who time ago who were giving Ukraine guarantee that if Ukraine will give out their nuclear and the missile and different all kind of types of missiles, that Russia will be guaranteeing the sovereignty and the protection of Ukraine now, and then Russia is occupying and attacking. Plus, time before they said, "Oh, there is no Russian military in Crimea." And later Putin says, yes, it was a special operation. Then we guarantee Russia will never attack Ukraine because we recognize its sovereignty and its territory. Later they say, oh, we had to attack it like the same way as Hitler said about Stalin. They said, "Oh, if not us attacking them, they would attack us. We had no choice." So, but it's sorry, but I mean, he can refer it to all the people. Maybe not to Ukrainians. Sorry.
So
But
Russia, made statements in the past that they would not invade Ukraine, right?
yes, sure.
Well, what is this? What's all
This
that
is
red?
a war.
Okay, just checking. Now, you were also earlier talking about the nuclear terrorism or making a statement. We were talking about China, the nuclear threat. Right there, Lavrov, in his statement, if you pay attention, accused Great Britain of potentially wanting to push the red button, France being a nuclear power, America completely out of control. Out of control. In fact, they're all laughing at us right now, to be quite honest. I'll show that in a moment, but it's exactly the opposite of how the Ukrainians communicate. So the world needs to see it. All we can do is show it and share it. Now, Lavrov, when he was leaving New York, I just want to give an insight into the character of this man. Okay. So I'm going to show a little clip. Through this clip, I'm going to show the power of his English because all these reporters are screaming at him in English to get a question answered. Of course, he understands it. He then turns to one of the reporters and looks at her and says, "Nice dress." And the Russian entourage keeps on moving. So I just want people to see the character here of the foreign minister. I may play this twice. And this was right on RIA News. So I'll play it twice if people need to see it, but watch it. You're going to see Lavrov and his entourage come through, reporters yelling, just like they do at American presidents or people being interviewed. Then he turns, responds in English. Of course, they're understanding everything. Here you go. He says, "Nice dress."
Anything about Evan Gershkovich? Sergei Viktorovich, anything about Evan Gershkovich?
So just watch it again. He hears, he understands, looks at the reporter, "Nice dress."
Anything about Evan Gershkovich? Sergei Viktorovich, anything about Evan Gershkovich?
There goes the entourage. So, it's just, look at Kuleba sitting there, nicely dressed, the glasses, talking very articulate, and these guys are walking out looking at reporters, despairing, a very sexist remark, despairing to that lady. "Nice dress." So
Yes, but you have to understand this is the whole picture, why it's on their media, because this picture shows that their representative Lavrov, he's so careless about what journalists, media guys, reporters, and all these opinions of other countries. It means nothing for him. This is what they want to emphasize, because what average Russian can see I will not touch even the percentage of people in Russia who speaks English.
Mm-hmm.
So in this video, they can see like, oh, nice dress. Because it's a school program, maybe. But at all, he just ignoring it. He just goes this way. It's the same way the Russia wants to have an attitude like to other countries. They're coming to other countries and demanding for they would start talking to them in Russian.
Mm-hmm.
Not Russians as to learn their language, local language. Go to Egypt, go to Turkey, go to Kazakhstan. It's not about that. No, they make people. You have to talk to in my language, and this is just. It's just a normal. They just putting it in their minds of their people, and maybe the media guys, all the people of the world. This is a Russian position.
It's also showing we're up here and you're down here.
Yeah.
Now,
Yes.
talking about media today, I hate to tell this, but I'm going to show it. This was the number one thing on the news on Smatry Media. So for all of you Americans out there, I want you to know today in Russia, you were being laughed at. Why? They took this clip, President Biden talking about our economy and how great it is, and laughed us all the way to the ends of the earth, talking about how, what is he talking about? You're basically in recession. Your economy is wrecked. You're doing all of this. And they were laughing. This is the video they were showing. And just same principle. Lavrov walking out, looking down, nice dress. Now showing Biden and going, yeah, this is your president. He can't even understand your economy's wrecked. This is what they played.
To talk about the progress we've made together. And it wouldn't have been made without you, and that's not hyperbole, that's a fact. Our economic plan is working. We now have to finish the job, but there's more to do. And you're leading the way, shovels in the ground, cranes in the air, factories opening, all those jobs, meaning we created the IBW jobs, ironworkers, boilermakers, teamsters, laborers, bricklayers, masons, plumbers and pipe fitters, painters, plasterers, roofers.
So let me get back there. Let me just tell you, this was how America was viewed today on Russian media. Of course, they were watching it. Xi and Zelensky. They were looking at Lavrov. They were looking at Medvedev. But as far as Biden, this is what they were watching and saying, he really thinks the American economy is doing great. And it's just that attitude. That's what I think we're trying to say. That attitude of we're here and everybody else is down here. So just more of the same.
It just all the time. You have to people don't understand probably there is the background, years and years and years of background. And when Ukraine turned back to Soviet Union and said, no, now we have a new own way, which was stopped in 1918, let's say, by Soviet army at that time, like Russian army, and Ukraine was occupied. But Ukraine made the choice. We go European way. We make English and other language. We want to have open borders, making people travel, doing international programs with other countries, partnership, trying to involve as much investment. And the same way, an opposite, you see opposite in Russia, all their shows was like how those are people not even close, like there is no Ukrainians, it's just or Sikh or just a mixture DNA problem people. This is what they were growing, and they're coming to our president. In the beginning it was the same, it wasn't funny, they were repeating, oh, he's a clown, he's a clown, he's a clown, oh, look at this kid, he's a clown, he's nothing, he will do nothing. Now they did stop. joking like this, because this clown, let's say, it's public punishment of Russia.
Mm-hmm.
And now more and more, but they cannot show the other results. Go to the any science. What about the space programs? What about demography situation? What about cultural? What about anything? When you go any of these areas, no, they far go. And now what can they show? How they can fight, or at least pretend that they are the country? But by the territory, they are big country. By the quantity of people on a certain territory, one of the probably in the end. So they have more than enough the place, but no, because seems to me they started to recognize they can do nothing with that, and the only way is just continue stealing, using Ukrainians and Ukrainian territory, Ukrainian sources,
You
and
talk
fighting,
about,
killing.
let's take one example, and this is unbelievable, but it takes me right to the next place. How about the clown before the clown? So you had clown on the left, and then clown number 2 on the right, Medvedev, took over, and then clown number 1 came back. But clown number 2 is still rolling. And if clown number 1 on the left went away, clown number 2 may go in the office, and clown number 2 is probably worse than clown number 1, if the truth be known. So there you have them. You're talking about science and how they're not really seeing anything, not doing anything, da-da-da-da-da. Very interesting. Medvedev on the right there, speaking at a youth, it's like 18 to 25-year-old university age students science meeting. Okay? This happened just now, where he's speaking at this Russian science meeting of these young students and people in university. Watch what he's talking about. He's talking about global warming, so the science, and he gets off of it really quick and starts talking about nuclear war. You've got to see it to believe it. Here it is. Stop suffering because the temperature in the world has risen by 1 degree in a year at a period of time. You guys know humanity's been observing this for a very short time. Do you really care about climate to that extent? In my opinion, there's nothing compared to the prospect of finding ourselves at the epicenter of an explosion with a temperature of 5,000 kelvins with a speed of 350 meters per second and a pressure of 3,000 kilograms per square meter, with ionizing radiation and electromagnetic pulses. Does such a perspective exist today? Unfortunately, yes. And it grows every day for known reasons. If you have a weapon in your hands, and as a former president, I know what it is like. You must be prepared that your hand will not tremble to use it in a certain situation. All these factors should not be that your hand will be underestimated by our adversaries, the countries that we now quite appropriately call our enemies. You can't make it up.
I mean, sorry. What? I mean, how can I comment it? Yes,
You can't.
They will do anything, and their main message now: go and die on this war.
Yes.
Okay,
Was my translation right?
It's so close. Situation with economy. Russia are blocked in travel in many places. The excess of free education, I mean the Western education, really limited, let's say. What can they tell people? Hey, we do wrong. No, we fighting against. I mean, we don't want to have a nuclear weapon. I mean, nuclear war. This is why just sit there and shut up.
Was
I
my
mean, like
translation
what?
right?
Yes.
I mean, he's talking
This is
about the degrees, how hot it's going to be, the pulse waves to these kids at this science event. And I know what it's like to
and
have the red button.
but you know he's right. You know that he's right. You know why? Because when it comes to the changes in the climate, this is not what their students are hearing in their universities, or they showing it on their TV. This is why this topic, if even now sounds funny. Okay, 1 degree, whole world in the chaos. Why? Because from their perspective, it's just funny. What about
Understood.
green energy? What about anything of that? You kidding? Like
No, I've
it's
got the
not
red button.
actual. It's outdated, or I don't know, or fantasy, or
All right, let's change topics here. This has been an awesome night. And, changing our schedule the way we've done it, people enjoy, even if the streams go longer and the updates more detailed and more video and more translation. So it gives us more time to prepare them. This is great. Today, let's change for the last two things tonight. Today is the anniversary of Chernobyl, April the 26th, 1986. I remember it very well. I was 14 years old. You were 12, I think. Right now, we're on the edge. If something happened at Zaporozhye, the scientist, world scientist, Ukrainian scientist, have said that it would be 10 times worse than Chernobyl. And Chernobyl was the worst nuclear disaster in the history of the world. And everybody knows about that. And if you want information about it, you can YouTube and watch documentaries and all learn about the sarcophagus over it. And Ukraine has a scientist there protecting it for the next 100 years, and the cleanup and dismantling reactor 4 still, all of that still going on. I don't want to talk about the details of that. I just want to ask you a question. As a young boy, do you remember this?
I remember a couple pictures, like moments from that period. The first thing, it was a call from my aunt. She and they were living in Zhytomyr Oblast, which is really close. And she called, and she was a scientist. So and she called my mother, and she said some information shared. And then I remember, seems to me, that it was just a couple days we were sitting, and the mother was discussing, should we move somewhere. She was trying to get us somewhere to Carpathian regions, a little bit far more. This is what I remember as well. I remember the talks about how many people are in need to help in that area. And my father, she seems to me, he was invited, but he couldn't go to work there for repairing it and helping there in Chernobyl. And I remember that in everywhere we had this, like, results of radiation. It was Soviet type, these lamps, but in a lot of places we had this. And people, I mean, not so much, but some factories, and people were going that place especially to check what is radiation level today. This is what I remember. This
And
big lamp. And Navatar, that area, you know, that
sure. Are you
Kation,
talking about Khmelnytsky? Yeah.
that, yeah, that place, and the temp, it's where McDonald's now, that area as well. So people were watching it, and I don't remember many details,
Do you
but
do
this is
you
what I
remember
remember.
Soviet Union at that time? Of course, you then would grow up even more in the Soviet Union. they were slow to give out information. Like
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
would hold the information. Yeah.
Yes. Why? It was all the media under control. So there is no cell phone communication, radio communication like this, and surely no internet, like for us. So just because of the personal talk, and it was the old kind of phone. So we got the call. It's why are you laughing?
Listen, I started going to Russia in 94 and Ukraine in 98. And even at that time, 10 years, 3 years for Moscow, but 7 years for Ukraine. The phone systems even then were still outdated. I had to make an appointment to go to a phone to use an AT&T calling card to call America. We've come a long way, baby, in the last couple of decades, and it's awesome. But that media, the reason I asked you that question, of course, we knew the answer to it, but if we're not careful, we see the same thing happening today with the control of the media. And the difference now, and you made it very clear, is cellular technology, social media, internet. So it's hard to suppress, but they're doing their best to suppress. But one thing we do not suppress here is the truth about Ukrainian military, humanitarian aid, civilians, government. These guys are good guys. And I want to close out tonight. We've covered a lot of heavy stuff today. Been a great update for the last hour. I want to share this video right here, and we'll get your opinion on this as we close out. You and I have witnessed firsthand being with soldiers many times, and we know the character, we know their care, we know their genuineness, their hearts many times are soft, meaning very caring and open and loving. I've got some video that came out on one of the channels that I follow, the political channel for Ukraine, showing a Ukrainian group getting ready to go in battle last day or so in the east. And they're anointing their heads with oil with the cross and praying, and it's pretty interesting. So I wanted to share that tonight. We've had a lot of heavy stuff we've covered tonight. Let's show this. Everybody, this is how Ukrainians go to battle.
почую його, буду з ним у скорботі, визволю його і прославлю його. Довгим життям обдарую його і дам йому спасіння моє. Во ім'я Отця і Сина і Святого.
Awesome.
When he reads out Psalms that he will be with us, he did promise, and they pray. It's like, yeah, like
all we can do is share the truth, brother. All we can do is share the truth.
Yeah. We were praying with the guys last time we've been there, and they were so happy that we're there, like, and that they are so happy that that people are praying for them, and that people trusting them. They believe that God will protect them, And this is the character, and this is, yeah, atmosphere there.
It really is,
And
and it's repeated all along the front lines. One of my favorite moments being on the front lines was down in the South, and Andrew Kimmel was with us, and we were giving communion to the soldiers with the blood and the bread, Holy Communion, Eucharist, whatever you guys call it if you're Christian faith. And Andrew couldn't even believe it. He's Jewish. He's sitting there filming it all and going, okay, this needs to be shared to the world. You know, they're just, this is the truth, folks. And we try to share it. So Slava Ukraina.
Героям слава. І слава Богу.
І слава Богу. Well, buddy, thank you. This has been a great update and much appreciated. So thank you as always.
Thank you. And thank all the people who are staying with Ukraine with us, who sharing truth, who commenting, who like sharing with the friends. For people would think, because it's so big difference with the nation, with the cultures, that it's so important to share something like this, explaining what's going on, like to help people to understand, to see the picture. So thank you to all the people.
Thank you to everybody. Where else are you going to come? Get updated on the truth, because we do give it. We'll even speak negatively against ourselves when we need to and say, oh, we shouldn't do that. We tell the truth. Get Lavrov translated, get Kaleb on here, Medvedev, and see Ukrainians praying before they go into battle. Where else are you going to see that? I don't know. So, all right, buddy, rest well, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah.
Good night to all.
Bye. It's all a good night, and here's a heart.
I see the heart. Woo!